Welcome to the Entangled Show, a weekly conversation where we bridge the gap between high-level physics and everyday reality. I'm your co-host, Pete Codella, streaming from Utah's Salt Lake Valley.
And I am Sumit Parashar. I'm from Bhilai and live in Lehigh. I live in two places at once, just like a quantum particle. I coined the term Quantonomy, which is what this show is all about. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Entangled Show. We're happy to be back. It's been a little bit of a break, and we are going to dive in and talk about quantum computing today. Sumit, anything you want to share before we jump in?
Absolutely, Pete. So our apologies to the viewers and listeners is that we were out and about last 3 to 4 weeks. We haven't done a recording. This is a special episode, so we made sure that we have good content to share. But in the last 4 weeks, we have had some solid developments here in Utah. We launched Silicon Slopes Quantum. So there's a lot of new developments that have happened, which is why we were not able to do the recording. But I am ready to go.
Some good momentum for sure. Well, let's not waste any time and let's jump in. You've got some slides to share, and I'm going to ask you questions, and you're going to talk through some of the images that we're presenting. So this is probably an episode that people want to watch as opposed to listen to. But why don't you start with, what is a quantum computer? What does it look like?
Hey, that's a great question. Are you able to see my screen now?
Yeah, you're good.
Beautiful. So the visual that you're looking at right now is a quantum computer.
It's big.
It's huge. The room that it is set up it's approximately 20 by 20 room.
Wow.
And this is an alien-like object that is hanging like a chandelier in the middle of the room. And chandelier is the word that they officially use. But I'll share something surprising with you in a second that should pretty much shock you. But in all simplicity, this is what a quantum computer looks like.
It does look like something straight out of a Hollywood movie.
It does. And that makes us Hollywood stars, right?
Okay, you can be the Hollywood star. I'll be the producer.
Let me drill down on this visual and share an information or a bit of information with you that is not commonly known. Is if I share this slide, essentially what we are looking at is, I would say 90% of the structure that you see is a freezer. Quantum computers or quantum chips need to operate at a very, very low temperature. And to gradually bring the temperature down to a level where the quantum chip can be working in a stable way, most of the structure that you see around the quantum computer is a freezer. Now, if you see the blue arrow in the middle of the screen, that points to a processor looking thing, which is actually a quantum or a QPU or a quantum processing unit. It's shown as a 64 qubit array. In a second, we'll talk about what qubits are too. But when I learned that, I was shocked. Is that, hey, this huge room and the huge chandelier and aura of mystery or whatever, it looks magnificent, and it should. But the thing is, the core working part of that quantum computer is just the chip that is being pointed to with that blue arrow. Does that shock you?
How would you equate the, what did you say, 63 or 64, that measurement to like storage we're used to, I guess, gigabytes? Different?
So it won't be parallel to gigabytes. It will be parallel to bits. So in a second, we'll talk about bits in classical computers, but think of it as a computer with 64 different kinds of bits set upon it.
And it certainly is surprising that this large room and that piece that you described, the chandelier, the processor is just a little tiny portion of all of that space.
Yep, that's the surprising part. So just to emphasize what kind of temperatures are needed to make quantum computers work, we came up with this description. is that on the left-hand side, you have room temperature, which is 20 to 25 degrees centigrade or 68 to 77 Fahrenheit. So compared to that, the temperatures that quantum computers operate in are billions of times or billion times colder than room temperature. So that is the state that we're in right now.
Even colder than space.
Even colder than deeper space.
Wow.
Just a quick tidbit I'll throw out here is that we attended the University of Utah Quantum Symposium the other day, and they are working on a research item where we will be solving this specific problem. Is we need to bring the quantum computers to a point where they can work on room temperature. And we are happy to see that the EU has already picked up that topic, and we will support them wholeheartedly on their effort.
Yeah, it does seem like that's a huge constraint to make it feasible, or even, I mean, it's obviously not something anyone could carry around in their pocket, right? At this point, like a
Absolutely.
smartphone.
It's a huge constraint.
Yeah.
So we'll take a step back. Go ahead, Pete. Did you have a
Yeah,
question?
classical computer and quantum computer. Let's talk about the bits, the ones and zeros versus superposition.
There you go. Yeah. So the reason why all of us are leaning more towards quantum computing these days is because the fundamental way in which they work is different than classical computers. So when I say classical, all the computers that we have as of right now would be called, at one point they would be called legacy, but right now we call them classical. So from zero to now, we have classical, but then from this point on into quantum, we'll be calling them quantum computers. So that's the definition of classical and quantum. And like I said, the fundamental difference is the classical works on bits, and the new paradigm now is the qubits. So that is a magical aspect. And based on the principles that we learned before this episode, superposition, probability, and entanglement, qubits follow those quantum behaviors. And we are now able to leverage those spooky behaviors to make computers work much faster.
And an example of this, one way to think about this difference, something that I could understand, is a light switch. A standard light switch is either on or it's off. So you have light or you don't have light. But in quantum, replace the switch with a dimmer, and suddenly you have on, off, and everything in between.
That's a beautiful analogy, Pete. That's just perfect. Is that if you have a switch, it's either on or off. But if you have a dimmer switch, it is on or off or on and off. So the
Yeah.
principle of superposition. Well said.
So that's one way to think about the classical versus quantum computing.
Absolutely. Few other things, and this is a presentation we are building for a non-technical audience, so we will not go into details and specifics of how bits or qubits work behind the scenes. But suffice it to say that this is the main difference between classical and quantum, is the classical computers use bits and quantum computers use qubits.
Do you want to talk about how they have evolved over time?
Yeah, let's do that. And hey, I wanted to bring up our logo at this point in time. There we go. So do you want to share the beautiful story why we have the Bloch sphere and why we have this logo as our logo?
It's a qubit. That represents a qubit. And I just happened to have this thing that I was showing, which I don't even know how I came across it. I think it was purchased for a bookshelf at one point, but actually represents what a qubit looks like, which is in our Entangled Show logo.
Beautiful. The moment, so first time when we started recording and I saw that in your background, I said, yep, that it's meant to be. And so I love that you had that sphere and that we used that logo. So not surprisingly, that logo points to the fundamental of how qubits actually work. So even going forward for our audience who has not learned about qubits or Bloch sphere, the relation is this, is that Qubits are the fundamental unit of a quantum computer. Qubits are also represented in a diagram with a thing called a Bloch sphere, BLOCH sphere. So what you see here on the screen, where you have the blue sphere and you have arrows pointing within, that is actually called the Bloch sphere. And I'll take just like 10 seconds to describe the diagram, and then we will not go deeper into the technology of how it is implemented. But Pete, like you were saying, if you had a classical computer and you were using bits, you would turn a switch on or off. Parallel to that, in a Bloch sphere, you have the north part of the sphere and the south part of the sphere. The north part of the sphere can be represented by a 0, and the south part could be represented by a 1. So which is your parallel between a bit and a qubit. But then with a qubit, you have another dimension where if you look at the equator part of the sphere, that represents 0 and 1. And that pretty much changes everything. So there's a lot more that we can talk about in terms of Bloch sphere. But at this level and for our particular audience, I think that should suffice.
Definitely multidimensional, not flat.
Absolutely. Well said.
What's next? Evolution of computers?
Yeah, let's talk about how we got here. In my mind, when I first saw images of a quantum computer, the first thing I thought is that this reminds me of how IBM computers used to look like, years back.
Fill up
So
whole floors of office buildings, right?
exactly, you would
Yeah.
need a huge setup. You would have the computer sitting in between. It was supposed to be dust free, so you had to take your shoes off 3 levels before you got even close to that computer. You needed an air conditioner to operate that computer, and it was treated with a lot of respect. And that's what it reminded me of when I saw a quantum computer for the first time. And in a way, years down the line, I truly believe that we will have quantum computers more prevalent, commonly available as computers are right.
And you would think with quantum computing, with the advancements that we're seeing, just with AI being a new thing, perhaps that time frame is just so much smaller to get to that next progression in quantum. It'll be interesting to look back and see how long it takes.
Absolutely, Pete. There is this law called the Moore's Law, Moore, Moore's Law, where he came up with a theory on how quickly computers will evolve going forward. And it has held true up until quantum computers. But then with quantum computers, they have broken all the predictions that we had so far.
Wow.
So moving on from the mainframe era, we came into mini computer era, which was an evolution where computers were getting smaller. Then of course we came to the PC era. We have lived through that. I had a PC without a floppy, and then we had a PC with a floppy, and then we had a PC with a hard disk. So we have seen that evolution. And
I'm pretty sure that I had a Macintosh personal computer just as I was finishing high school in the late 80s.
Cool. Yeah, Macintosh are still fun. I grew up in India, and we did not have Ataris and Commodores and Macintosh in India. So this computer right here, it's a ZX Spectrum Plus computer from a company called Sinclair. And my dad, he was returning from Nigeria via UK. He just bought this computer for me, and I self-taught myself how computers work.
So about how old were you, Sumit, when you got that machine?
I was probably, now you're putting me on the spot, and you all will know how old I am.
Well, I think I was, when I got my computer, like maybe 16, 17, teenage years.
Around the same time. I think I was in grade
Yeah.
or 11 at that time.
Yeah,
So
about the same time. Yeah.
cool. Then, of course, we are here right now. There's the modern computing era, but then the future is quantum. That's the evolution of computers.
In our modern computing era, I keep waiting for something besides the smartphone to be like the next big thing. Maybe the wearables, the watches, and the glasses are headed in that direction, but it sure seems like it's been 15 or 20 years and we don't have a new thing that everyone needs and wants. So that'll be interesting. I wonder if we'll just jump straight into quantum or if there's going to be something before that.
One of the reasons I think we are seeing that is because we've lost Steve Jobs. We haven't seen a lot of innovation come in, but yeah, I'm his fan, so I would bring up his name all the time. But yeah, to your point, we actually have a slide where we talk about what could happen in the future. We will try to make a prediction of how quantum computers will evolve. Now, this is something interesting. We talked about it a little bit before, and we'll just touch upon this right now. Quantum computers have kind of overtaken supercomputers, and that's unfair to supercomputers because they did not get to live their full life. But IBM has come up with a framework or a blueprint where they have shown us designs on how supercomputers and quantum computers can work together.
Well, good thing we're not going to hurt a supercomputer's feelings by making it obsolete.
Who knows? We already could have. Maybe they're running some AI engines on supercomputers. They're like, hey, I don't like this.
General artificial intelligence, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So IBM is leading out. I'm surprised that we don't see Apple. I think you've got slides with IBM and Google. Is that right?
I do. Google and IBM are leading the charge here. There are a few other hardware companies that are manufacturing quantum computers, but Google and IBM, they are like way far ahead.
Okay.
Question always comes up is that, we've seen classical computers, they are pretty fast right now. How fast can quantum computers be? So to address that, this is the comparison where we have shown Google Willow as the quantum computer that we have benchmarked here. But a few months back, Google published some numbers, and they said that we have been able to run an algorithm on their Willow quantum computer that ran in, say, a few minutes. But then if you had to run the same algorithm on classical computers, it would have taken a few septillion years. So that's
just a few years.
Just a few years. That's how fast quantum computers are. And our universe is said to be 13.8 billion years old. And so the amount of time that quantum computer to work on the algorithm was so quick is that people are speculating that the quantum computer actually goes out to a different universe. So the assumption is we are in a multiverse and that the quantum computer goes to a different universe, borrows time from there, runs the process using time from that universe, and then quickly comes back to ours. So I don't know how...
You just blown everyone's mind, Sumit. Can I share something? You tell me if this kind of describes the time frame in a good way. Think of a maze and think of a classic computer that's going to try to solve the maze by going through every option in the maze. And it has to start and then proceed. And if it ends, then it starts again and it goes through the maze. Whereas a quantum computer, basically, it's like sending mist out through the maze so that it all happens at the same time. And the mist that's getting through the maze suddenly lights up and there's your answer. So it just happens so much faster than trying every single scenario. Does that help describe the time difference?
Beautifully. That is, even in my mind, that is exactly how it works. Just to paraphrase is that with classical, we have a procedural logic. So if we have to solve a maze, we look at option one. Yep. And then if it doesn't work, we look at, so it's procedural and step by step. With quantum computers, you can look at all possible options at once and come up with one single solution. So that's a great analogy.
What's next?
Talking about speed, I'm a Mustang guy, so I had to have...
Of course you have a Mustang on here.
I had to have a comparison with my Mustang, but...
if a Ford Mustang zips past you on I-15 in Utah, it's probably Sumit.
Thank you. So yeah, this is a simpler way to imagine how quick quantum computers are. As if you had a Mustang with a nitrous, you could pretty much go 0 to 60 in less than 2 seconds. And anyway, this is my favorite way of explaining how quantum computers could work. So, Pete, we have good news that quantum computers are just around the corner, is that we will have a lot more processing power, a lot more speed, and we will be pretty much evolving into the next era of computing. So that's the good news.
Do you
That is
think
all.
quantum computers will be located at most major research universities by 2030, 2035?
They should. Between
Yeah.
2030 and 2035, a
Yeah.
lot of labs and universities and even state governments and federal government, they should
Hmm.
have their own implementation of quantum computers.
Yeah. Really just around the corner.
Absolutely. So that is the good news, is that we are evolving into the next era. But unfortunately, that is also the bad news, is that these computers are so powerful that they will end up breaking all kinds of encryptions that we have going on right now.
Let's talk about Q Day, Quantum Day, how that's going to change the internet as we know it.
In all simplicity, when Q day is here, which we don't know exactly, all the encryption that we have built so far, which internet uses through and through, it's all going to break.
And fair to
So
say it's probably around 2030, maybe 2029, somewhere in there. Yes.
yeah, so this is our estimate based on what Google said about a couple of months back. They used to say 2035 before, then they said 2030, and now they're actually saying 2029. So
Which
the
goes to
deadline
my
is,
earlier point that things are just speeding up.
yeah, absolutely. Things are creeping up on us. But yeah, that's the Q day deadline that we are facing as of right now.
Is there anything
One,
people can do to prepare for Q Day?
yes,
Do we just
that
trust that all of our, I don't know, our financial institutions and all of our email service providers, like that they're preparing for that day and they'll have solutions in place?
that's a great question, Pete. This is something that we should be sharing with everyone, not
Hmm.
just our viewers, not just our listeners, but we should literally be stopping people on the street and telling them that, hey, their credit cards and their banks and their medical records are all not safe. And they should be asking their state governments and their federal governments and the companies that store their data to make sure that nothing bad happens. So along these lines, with the Q day, there is another red flag that we are raising, and that red flag is called the quantum cliff. So the idea is that the day when quantum computers are up and working on a day-to-day basis, the thing is that as soon as they are alive, they will start breaking encryption.
Hmm.
So if we don't take care of that problem, if we don't proactively change our encryption mechanisms and make our data safe, we are going to fall into a cliff.
And
And
we
the
talked
cliff.
about this a little in episode 5, where we
Mhm.
had our friend Ryan Starks on. And is this the reason that you're seeing so many two-factor authentication things happening where it's like using your phone, your face, your thumbprint on a computer?
Yes, that is a good thing that we are doing right now. Bringing in two-factor brings in more awareness, but a quantum computer can break that in a pretty easy way.
Wow. So how does a quantum computer solve two-factor authentication? Like, can it mimic my cell phone getting a text message and a code, or mimic the scan of my face?
Hold on a
Just
second.
bypass it.
The biometrics, that will still be in play, as far
Okay.
if I get it right, is that thumbprints and or biometric authentication would be a good thing to follow, when you are trying to
They
get
would
into
still
a
give you
system.
security and protection for data.
Yes, but the way the data is being encrypted and stored, that needs to be upgraded to a newer mechanism.
Got it.
So, great points. The quantum computer can break two-factor because it can try all possibilities at once per each human being.
So
So,
if it's a 6-digit code, a quantum computer can produce that in seconds. If it's biometrics from your eyes or your face or your thumb, a quantum computer can't replicate that unless it's stored somewhere, I guess.
yep,
Huh.
absolutely. Makes sense.
Okay.
So, to answer your previous question, the US government or NIST specifically as an agency has been watching this space for a long time now. And good for us is that they have done their research and they have come up with some new cryptographic standards that we should be using to protect ourselves going forward. So NIST has come up with some algorithms and some standards that we can already use, where we can take the existing data, use the new mandates from NIST, encrypt the data in a way where even when quantum computers are around, they will not be able to break it. So this slide kind of refers to that cryptographic format called PQC, or post-quantum cryptography.
And Sumit, are we seeing any advancements or considerations from foreign governments, maybe European Union? I mean, if honestly, if we're relying on the US Congress to do something between now and 9, we're out of luck. Are other places addressing this?
They are, but we are, so lucky for us is that NIST is not a politically aligned organization. They've been
Well,
decoupled.
neither is the Fed.
So
We don't want to get into politics. Okay.
I'm an optimist, and I'm thinking that NSF and the Science Foundation and NIST, they keep themselves insulated from the politics. But in this case, as far as I can see, we will not have to leverage or look at standards from outside of US. Maybe the other way around would be true, is that people will look at the NIST standards to come up with their new encryption mechanisms. But I think we are safe that way.
Okay.
Uh,
Let's talk
so-
different types of qubits. I know you've got a chart here with at least a few, as well as the companies who are in that space.
Yes, Pete. So we talked about Bloch sphere, we talked about qubits. Based on research done in the US, we figured out how to implement qubits using a few different mechanisms. The most commonly used mechanisms are superconducting, trapped ion, and topological qubits. So going deeper into each would be tough at this point in time, but suffice it to say that the three main types of qubits that we have up and working at this point in time are superconducting, trapped ion, and topological.
And that they're completely different from classical computing and the silicon chip that is the current hot commodity for computing.
Absolutely. There's no similarity that I can think of.
Yep.
And so these are the leading companies when it comes to quantum computers. So IBM and Google, like I said, they are leading the charge here. The kind of qubit modality they are using is superconducting. So I can't say for sure why superconducting is being used by both of them. Based on our understanding, all platforms and all architectures are good. Gradually, we'll see some more too. But yeah, suffice it to say, IBM and Google are on superconducting type of qubits. A company called Quantonomy is using trapped ion. IonQ is also using trapped ion. And Microsoft has taken a different direction where they're using a topological qubit architecture. But yeah, in a nutshell, that's what we have in terms of which company is using what architecture.
And again, the thing that stands out to me from this list is no Apple. It's just interesting. One of the wealthiest companies in the world doesn't appear to be, and a hardware company doesn't appear to be in this space yet, or they just haven't told us.
It's surprising. Maybe they were busy building their car, and so that's where they got distracted.
Their electric car, which now they're not building.
Exactly.
Are you ready to pull out your crystal ball to make a prediction?
I'm glad you asked, Pete. We do have a prediction to make. We have seen tech for 35 plus years now, but in our opinions, going forward, this is what it could look like in 2036. Some new stuff here is Elon Musk's company is working on Neuralink. Maybe that's why they're not paying too much attention to quantum computers. But there are three or two new ideas here is that at one point in time, we will be able to couple a quantum computer with a human brain. The brain could be in a body or outside, we don't know. But either possibility could be true. But then to be able to manage all the data that's being generated with this configuration, The data storage technology would have to be a DNA based data storage technology. We will come up with artificial DNA that would mimic the natural DNA or deoxyribonucleic acid that we have. And that uses the 4-bit architecture called ATCG. And we are going to see technologies that will store data based on parallels drawn from the DNA structure. And what is said as of right now is that if you want to take all the data from the internet and use DNA tech to store it in one place, you could pull out a shoebox and then store all the internet's data in this one shoebox. So, in my opinion, I think that's where we'll see ourselves in the next 10 years.
I mean, that's remarkable because I think we've all heard that we're creating so much data on the internet that we can't physically house it all. So you're talking about a new DNA type storage that just, again, new paradigm, new way to store things. And the other thing I feel like you're talking about is more, I'm going back to Hollywood, like that you can preserve someone's life experience from their brain and store it, and then feasibly have a way to interact with, let's say, my dad's life, his experience, recall memories from his memories. That type of future is hard to grasp.
But Pete, I think we'll be there sooner than we know it. With the developments that we have done in AI already, it is actually possible to create personas. So, we have a lot of digital signatures everywhere. We have, our faces on the internet and we have our voices. And so one of the things these days is that you can create your own persona and train it the way you think, and then it should be able to respond to questions when we are not around.
I mean, I'll just give a practical example. 2026 is the year that I have used Google Gemini to give it my taste preferences and preferences for food and drink. And I can go to Gemini and have it generate a pretty awesome menu of things that I like. It knows I don't drink alcohol or coffee. Like, it is very personalized in how it can provide recommendations for things for me to cook or bake, and also using what exists without me having to run to the store. So it's pretty cool how you can teach AI to render those types of recipes and experiences that are aligned with your tastes.
We have made so much progress when it comes to AI in the last 3 to 4 years. Yeah, we have shared a lot of information about us with AI and it never forgets. But you're right, we are at a point in time where AI can actually do a lot of stuff or tasks on our behalf, and it knows us well.
All right, how do we land this plane, Sumit? What's next?
So, just a couple of other things is that we'll talk about quantonomy and try to couple it with quantum economy, because quantum computers going to be big going forward, and then a lot of revenue is going to be associated with them. So that, and plus we'll talk about the future as to how quantum computers can be leveraged.
I feel like it's fair to say we've gone through an industrial revolution, the information age. That next will be the quantum era. I don't know what we'll call it, but I feel like quantum is at the heart of what's next.
Absolutely. So here, what we are doing is we are trying to draw parallels between astronomy and quantonomy. Is that we took astronomy as our anchor word. We said if a study of astronomical objects can be called quantonomy, then we use the same logic to say that, hey, quantum economy can be joined as one word, and then quantonomy can represent the same concept. So every bit of economy that is associated with quantum computing or quantum sensing or quantum X factor can be included under quantonomy.
And just to help our American English speakers, we're talking about astronomy and economy and quantonomy. Sumit and I often put the emphasis on different syllables, but same words.
Yep. It's my Indian accent.
Which we love.
Let's talk about something else that, it's for research and development for, people like me, we are tech crazy, so we just like to see tech work. But what that tech could do for us in reality is something, that we should start envisioning right now.
I know you
So
have a favorite here to talk about, but I'm just going to say if we could solve GPS map directions so that cars going to different destinations are all correlated somewhere and can get there the fastest and avoid all the backups, wow, think how awesome that'll be. And it probably happens when our transportation is all computerized, right? And you're not relying on a person to make a decision to turn here instead of a block ahead. But boy, that'll be amazing when we get to that point with logistics.
absolutely. So I'm thinking of another word in conjunction with quantum computing called quantum sensing. So if you have sensors attached to an automobile and the quantum computer behind the scenes is aware of where every sensor is at, and if the automobile is following directions from that quantum computer, I mean, what you're saying will hold true is that collisions will be a thing of the past.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Knight Rider from when I was a kid and talking to Kit, the car, right? We can talk to our cars now, say, "Hey Siri," or whatever operation operating system you have in your vehicle. But having the information in real time about avoiding congestion and traffic jams, that'll be awesome.
Yep, that's going to happen pretty soon in the future. One of the topics here is an absolute favorite of mine, and I do want to make that happen. If I'm able to support research and development along those lines, I would jump right in. Is that there will be a point in time pretty soon where we will have custom medicine being created on the fly using quantum computers. So the scenario that I'm thinking is that, say, if I'm in an ER, the local systems at that ER know everything there is to know about my body at that point in time. So they know the blood pressure, they know the blood sugar, they know cholesterol, all the thousands of parameters that represent my body at that point in time can be sensed by local devices. Now, if we take all of that data and then also go out to a quantum computer with the actual illness or the disease that is in the body, the quantum computer has a fantastic capability where it can see all options at once and come out with the right option or the correct answer. If we take all parameters, take it to a quantum computer, and if it responds back with the one answer, we can take that one answer and create custom medication that is specific to that one particular body. So I think that will take the medicine field into a completely different paradigm. And I say that it's because, and Pete, I've shared this with you earlier, is that I lost my mom in April of 2021. We had COVID going on. We didn't lose her to COVID, but we lost her to the chaos of COVID. And the year, we are not sure what medication was administered to her and what the state was in that year because we were never allowed to go in there. But if we in the future had a quantum computer that could evaluate all the properties of the body and come up with a custom medication, we could eliminate the chaos and the iatrogenetic part, which is the doctor induced illness part. So removing humans from an equation where we have to cater to a patient in real time, I think from that perspective, quantum computers will save lots of lives going forward.
I can't imagine how frustrating and just confusing and disheartening it would be to lose anyone anytime, but especially during COVID. It was such a strange time. And you're right, to kind of bring it full circle, I think about our current approach of solving a maze like one pathway at a time versus a mist that goes through and can look at everything and have the solution in seconds. That certainly will make a huge difference, probably for life expectancy, for all sorts of health situations. I listened to an interesting podcast, I think last week. Hard Fork is the podcast. They interviewed a doctor, about how many medical practices and doctors and hospitals have an AI interface before the patient sees a doctor, and will ask for symptoms and information and gather them and have kind of a potential output on what needs to happen. Like, as you've described it, I can see that happening both quickly and in a very customized, individual, personalized way. It seems like it will really alleviate so much pain and suffering for all of us.
Perfect. In that sense, having quantum computers around will be a blessing for us going forward.
All right, so quantum computing coming in a handful of years, and will change the internet, will change our economy, will change so many things about our experience. And buckle up and be sure all your important information is protected by biometrics. What else, Sumit? What other parting wisdom would you share?
All is good. We will enjoy the benefits coming out of quantum computing. But the last thing I want to say in today's episode is that we all should be aware that we are facing a cliff, a quantum cliff. So all of us should join forces and make sure that we convert our data into this new format, encrypt the data in a new format so that we don't run into that cliff scenario, which is pretty similar to the Y2K issue that we had before. But in closing, that's my heads up.
Similar, except those of us who lived through Y2K, it felt like much ado about nothing. And from what I understand and from what you've said, this quantum cliff is actually going to have a huge impact on us, and we do need to prepare.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. It was great to spend some time with you, and look forward to our next episode.
Thank you, Pete. We'll talk soon.
The Entangled Show podcast is available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Please like and subscribe to the pod. Connect with us at entangled.show or send an email to info@entangled.show. I'm Pete Codella. Thanks for listening.
And I am Sumit Parashar, signing off for now. Thanks again for joining us here at the Entangled Show. We'll see you next time.